Finally, I've found the electrical problem that's been keeping me from getting this machine up and running. Let me show you what I found. Welcome to 3D Accuracy, where I'll talk about 3D printing, 3D product design, and 3D injection and die-cast mold design. Before I show you what I found that I believe is the problem, in fact, I'm sure it's the problem, let me give you a little rundown how the system works so you can see what I'm dealing with. Here's what happens. The three-phase panel gets a 240 volt line, comes in underneath the machine right here. Goes in, there's black, there's red. The white wire isn't used from here. It's capped off. Okay, don't need the white wire. And then there's the ground. Now, it goes through the system and out the other side comes a 240 volt line. There's a black, there's a red, and there's a white wire. Now, this wire goes through this wire here to the idler motor across the shop. That's the manufactured line. There's 240 volts being fed to that motor across the shop. As the motor turns, it generates a third phase, and that's on the white wire, okay? So, what I did was, I opened up the back of the machine over here. That's the first thing I did. I finally got a hold of some information to find out how to check the machine, the electrical in the machine. So I pulled off this cover panel and I checked the voltages across here. There's, let me show you. Let me pull the light, bring it over here. You can see there's those little lugs, and there's an A terminal, a B terminal, a C terminal, and a ground and a neutral. Okay, and you check across those to check the electricity. It should read 230 volts. Okay, 230 volts. So when I check them, here's the voltages I got. Should be 230 volts plus or minus 5%. From A to B, I had 309. From A to C, I had 303. From B to C, I had 282. I'm like, what the hell is going on? How can the voltage be so bloody high? It's a 240 volt line. Does not make any sense. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I hope I haven't toasted something in the machine, in the printer. So, which I don't know yet. I may have damaged the battery, which is not a problem because I'm going to replace that anyway. But as long as there's nothing else that's damaged. What I did then is I opened up the panel down here, this little panel, because I wanted to see how the connections were being made. I thought maybe some of the wires are crossed up and it's causing a big spike in the voltage. Now, I don't know if you can see, it doesn't want to focus. Let me see if I can, there we go. Okay, you see those little labels on the wires, L1, L2, L3? Come on, focus. There we go. Sorry for this. It's a little cumbersome down here trying to hold the light, the camera, and get this to focus and do. Now, anyway, you see the black wire on the left is connected to L3. The white wire on the right is connected to L1. Now, in the sub panel, everything, the black is on L1 and the white is on L3. So those two wires are reversed. The red on L2 is fine. I don't believe that creates a problem because all it's doing is bringing 230 volts in from the step-down transformer. But it may make a slight difference because the manufactured line, the third phase, is always just a little different than the line that comes from the sub panel. So then I got thinking there has to be something wrong someplace else. So I decided to open up the transformer. And when I purchased the machine, I saw the machine running. I had it running at the previous owners. I made a part. I know the machine works. And let me get my pen over here. I just don't, a pencil is good. I just don't want to stick my finger in there. Although there's no electricity on, I'm still very cautious about this stuff. So anyway, when I purchased the machine, I knew I had 240 volts running because I've already set up the 240 volts on the big 3D printer. My FDM 8000 in the corner over there is 240 volts. So I know I have 240 volts in the shop. And I asked the previous owner, do you have it wired? Because this transformer is hardwired to the machine back here. Okay, it's connected. There are no plugs. It's just hardwired. And I asked him, do you have 240 volts in this shop? Is this set up and wired for 240 volts? And he told me, yes, no problem. I said, okay, great. Then I knew that was something I didn't have to mess with. And I asked him again the day I picked up the machine just to verify, make sure, yes, 240 volts, no problem. Well, I pop open this little transformer because I know there's something wrong in the system. And so I got looking at this. You can see this little diagram here. If I can zoom in on that. Here's the connections. Let's see if I can get... Here's the connections. You see, these are the input voltages, 200 volts, 208, 220, and 240. 230 is the output. So this is a step up, step down transformer. If you put in more than 230 volts, you put in 240, it'll knock it down to 230. You put in less, 200, 208, 220, it'll bump it up to 230. But you got to make the right connections. You see there's these little numbers here, and the wires go in these little numbers, 654321, 654321, 654321. Okay? Now, I look at how this is wired, and I see the white wire on number 5. Number 5 is good. That's the output for 230 volts. So where's the other white wire? Because one is coming into the transformer. One is coming from this group of wires here that attach to this plug in the phase converter panel. So I look and I see it's connected to number 2, okay? And the red is connected to number 2, and the black also is connected to its number 2. You see there's 3 transformers in here for each of the 3 lines. Well, I look at, what is number 2? What is number 2? And I look over here, this is wired for a 200 volt input. So basically what I've been doing is I've been inputting 240 volts into the 200 volt connection and upping the voltage from there. So instead of 230 volts, I'm getting 309, 303, 282 volts across the terminals in the back of the machine. No wonder it's not working correctly, and I'm having pops in the machine and potentially damaging something. I don't know. I still don't know if there's damage in the machine. That I have to find out yet. But at least I know what the problem is. And here's what I have to do. I need to take these wires that are connected to number 2, these wires, the white, the red, and the black that are connected to terminal 2, and instead I need to move those to terminal number 6. Come on, focus. You can see right here There's 240 volt input goes to terminal 6. So if I move these wires from number 2 to number 6, number 2 to number 6, number 2 to number 6, I should get an output now of 230 volts, not 300 and some volts. So that's what I have to do today. Besides that, I'm going to take these wires and I'm going to reverse that one. I'm going to reverse these two, the black and the white. So I'll put the black back on L1 where it should have been and the white on L3. Now, I'm going to disconnect these wires, these 3 wires, and get them out of the machine. After I change the connections in the transformer, because I want to check this voltage here at this connector before it goes into the connector and into the machine, so I don't make any more damage in the machine. I don't want to have a problem. So I'm going to clean that up first, then I'll come back and check the voltages again, and if the voltages are good and within reason, then I'll reconnect it to this connector and we'll try firing up the machine. First, I'll check voltages over here again, make sure they're good. And all these little black canisters here, this group of 3 black canisters and this group of 3 black canisters over here are fuses. So I'm going to pull those out and check all the fuses with my loop to make sure they're still good. I may have popped a couple fuses with what I was doing before. So I'm also going to do that. And then there's also a couple fuses. You may or may not be able to see them there. Right about in the center of the picture, there's a couple of fuses in there, but I don't think those are a problem, but I'm going to pull them up and check them anyway. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to rewire this transformer, check the fuses first, rewire the transformer, disconnect those wires from the machine, of course, before I do that. Then I'll rewire the transformer. Then I'm going to fire up the 3-phase and check all the connections and see what the voltages are before I reconnect to the 3D printer. If that goes well, then I'm going to see if I can get the machine to boot up. The other problem I have is this battery backup. It's not working properly. And what I had done before was disconnected the 2 power cables. You see the black cable here and the black cable back there on the other corner of the battery. And I connected those together to bypass the battery. And that's when the machine fired up, but it popped. I had an electrical short of some sort, and it popped or blew a fuse. I don't know yet. I don't know exactly what happened, yet to be determined. I put the battery back in the loop the other day to back up a step and see if it would work, and the battery didn't show anything. It was completely dead. So let me do all this electrical wiring stuff. I want to do that without having to contend with the camera and make video, because whenever I'm dealing with electricity, I'm try to be extra cautious, you know? I mean, you have to remember, I'm new to this. I've never done this before. And what I really should have done is when I asked the guy what his voltage was in the machine, I should not have trusted what he told me. I should have taken it with a grain of salt. I should have opened the transformer anyway to make sure that it was wired correctly before I supplied electricity to the machine. So I learned something. But never having done this before, I just thought, okay, you know, he knew what's going on. He knew what was in his shop. Well, ends up he didn't, and I paid for it. So never do that again. And that's my recommendation. That's a lesson I learned. Don't trust it when you're buying used equipment and machinery. Make sure yourself that all the wiring is correct, just as if you brought a brand new machine in and this is being all wired up for the first time. Because just because it works in shop A across the street doesn't mean it's going to work in my shop here, because everything is just a little different. So always check before you plug it in. Lesson learned. Okay, so let me get on with making all these changes to the wiring, and then we'll move on to the next step. Have the fuses checked. I checked all the fuses. They're all good, no blown fuses. I took the wires off the back of the machine that come from the transformer, and I've rewired the transformer. So let me show you what that all looks like. Okay, there's the wires. They're out of that connector that's right there, that fella there. So I have the red, the black, and the white wire out, the 3 phases. So, and they're just disconnected from everything, so it's not connected to the machine. Then, in the transformer box, I moved the white wire in this first set from the second terminal connection to number 6. Did the same with the red from number 2, moved it to number 6. And same with the black from number 2, moved it to number 6. And that should be correct according to this guy here. There's the 240 volt line, should be connected to terminal number 6. You can see the number 6 there. So now, now the scary part comes. Turn it on. I don't need any more pops. I don't need any more booms. I don't need any more surprises. I just need it to work. That's all I want, is I want this to work. As you can probably hear, the phase converter motor is running. It's all the way across the shop on the other side. You can still hear it like you're standing right next to the darn thing. Eventually it's got to go outside. Okay, so let me show you what I did after I turned everything on. I checked all the voltages, so let me show you what that is. The places I needed to check the voltages were, of course, the main 2 lines coming in here. I checked those. Those are 241.5 volts, so they're good. That's coming directly from the sub panel across the shop. Then I can check these outlets here, what they call T1, T2, T3. And this T3 is the manufactured line from the motor across the shop. So let me show you what that read. And then I also checked the wires down here at the back of the machine. And let me show you here. I wrote down all the numbers so I wouldn't forget. And let me show you what that says. Okay, so at the back of the phase converter, inside there from terminal T1, which is the top, T2, which is the middle, and T3, which is at the bottom, I get 241.5 volts. Comes straight through from the main. So that's good. But when I get down to the manufactured line, I get 265, which is not good. It can't be that high. And I get 260 between the middle terminal, T2, and the lower terminal, T3. Then what I did is I checked the wires. At the wires at the back of the machine, it should be 230 volts plus or minus 5%. From A to B, from black to red, I get 231.8. That's perfect. The maximum this can be is 241.8 with the 5%. So here I get 249 from the black to the white wire, which is no good. And you see that's too high. 249 is too high. It's out of the limit that the machine should have. And from the red wire to the white wire, I'm getting 255, which is even more. What that makes me is suspicious of the 3-phase panel. Why can't the rest of the 3-phase panel have the same voltage, come out with 241.5? Why is it so high? Now, I talked to them and they said, well, when you've got a load on it, you'd put a load, turn the machine on, and then it should balance out this 3-phase panel, and it should all read in the 240 range there, which means that once it goes through the transformer, then it should be 230 range. But I don't know. This is awfully high. He was talking a couple of volts, 5 volts, maybe 7, 8 volts, maybe 10. But I'm talking 15, 20, 25 volts over. So that makes me suspicious that this guy is no good. There's something wrong with the 3-phase panel, and that guy needs to be replaced. I hope you really enjoyed this video. If you're ever in need of 3D product design, 3D injection mold design, 3D die-cast mold design, or 3D printed prototypes or production parts, please feel free to contact me. You can find contact information in the video description. I look forward to hearing from you and to being of service to you. Thank you for watching. As always, I appreciate it. See you on 3D Accuracy's next video.